Hi there, COROS athlete and higher running coach Sage Kennedy here. The training talk on heart rate zones and distribution, more of an advanced talk, but as you know, I'm very into heart rate based training, zone based training, but I want to kind of talk about it and the implications of basically having a well-rounded training program that's going to get you to peak fitness, and maybe not always going by heart rate and zones, but also going by real life race performances, real life workouts, and real time paces that may be your goal pace or your goal trail performance or something like that. Let's get started. Now, obviously, this is a plug for COROS. Shout out to them, very loyal sponsor. I'm wearing the Apex watch here. And we're going to talk about their heart rate strap first, because the first thing is about getting accurate heart rate data. And I really like the bicep strap by COROS. It works with other brands of watches, just an FYI, but I found this thing to be very accurate, just as accurate as any comparable priced chest strap, but it goes on your arm, so it's less intrusive. It doesn't get in the way of your running vest, or there's less weight, less chafage with the armband strap. And I wore it in different ultras, and it's important because when I talk about real life heart rate data performances, people might not know their 100% max heart rate. I'm guessing most of you actually don't know. You might think you're pushing hard in a workout or at the end of a race. It's actually really hard to pull out a 100% max heart rate. I don't even know mine exactly right now. I'm gonna estimate it's probably around 175, but it's probably not 220 minus your age, and it may not be what Strava or some of the algorithms project your zones to be. You have to either define them by your max heart rate or go off real race data performance, which I think is the best way, because VO2 max workouts, VO2 max tests in a lab, if it's not incrementally super challenging and you don't get up there for 6 to 8 minutes all out and it's a perfectly paced effort, you might not be able to achieve 100% max heart rate. So any percentage working down from that might not be accurate. But fear not, we have zone-based training. So we are in the COROS training hub, looking at the EVO lab metrics, and I've got the distribution. It's a beautiful distribution because I could see I wear this bad boy on basically all my runs. Easy runs, zone 2, hard threshold tempo run efforts, zone 3 into zone 4, VO2 max efforts, zone 5, and COROS actually goes into 6 zones. And the zones are important because what matters is not just if you're touching all the zones, relative heart rate intensities, it means you're probably doing a good mix of speed work, but also slower recovery run work, which is good, right? You don't want to just be doing zone 2 100% of the time, maybe if you're a true beginner, but mixing it up is always good. And I could see those relative distributions in my weeks, in the mileage, how much time I'm spending or how many miles I'm putting in each relative zone, what my relative heart rate spikes are. It gives me a well-rounded picture, comprehensive picture, especially as a running coach, of the total stress that I'm putting on my body, but also the aerobic benefits that I may be incurring, as well as the lactate levels I may be incurring, and the mental stress. But I even wear this watch when I go to sleep. It tracks my heart rate. The optical wristband I found tracks my resting pulse very well when I'm sleeping, and it even gives you those different things with deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep, how many disruptions you might get if you're waking up, going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, tossing and turning. Good thing for that. Check out COROS for the sleep metrics on the app, but very easy to sync up. Now, the first main point I want to make with the heart rate training zones and the zones is, there's been a lot of buzz online always about this, probably over the last 15 years, the last 5 years especially, but there's some people confusing a 3-zone model, very oversimplified in my opinion. They'll be like, oh, I did the zone 2 run and I see their heart rate's like, pretty high, and it's like, oh, well, you were only on the 3-zone model. So there's a 3-zone model, oversimplified. There's my preferred 5-zone model, which I think goes very well with our higher running coaching, but also with, if you go back to like Peter Coe's 5-pace training theory, maybe Frank Horwell had credit for that, but the idea that you need 5 different paces in your training, and a lot of those paces tend to line up with 5 zones a lot better than just a 3-zone model, right? You could get more precise when you say, okay, this is aerobic, easy, steady running. Maybe it's zone 2, it blends into zone 3. Then we get the thresholds, aerobic threshold, up tempo, zone 3, lactate threshold, true zone 4, then we're in VO2 max. Now, COROS does 6 zones, which originally, I'm going to explain here, Those first 5 out of the 6 zones pretty much line up exactly what I've been talking about with our coaching and in higher running. We have a free pace intensity spectrum chart, but the 6th zone is really anaerobic power, which is, I agree, is a great extra gear to have. It's especially if you're not a marathoner or ultramarathon runner. Let's say you're a 1,500 meter runner, miler, you focus on the 5K, that extra anaerobic pure speed zone might be viewed as zone 6, right? 110, 120% of VO2 max. So, you know, there's an anaerobic component. There's something where maybe we don't care about heart rate. We're going for full on 100% sprint speed, high velocity, high intensity training, swimming in lactate, high levels, and that could be seen as an extra zone. Whereas in the 5 zone model, when I say zone 5, usually for marathoners and ultra-marathon runners, it's speed work, and it's speed work that's probably around velocity at VO2 max. Maybe it's a little faster than your 5K pace work. Maybe you're doing 200 meter, 400 meter repeats, and it's maybe 3K pace or closer to your mile race pace. Maybe you kick at the end. But for all intents and purposes, you're probably still trying to stimulate a pretty high heart rate spike over 90, 95% of max heart rate. And you're probably developing some lactate levels. That's pretty high intensity. So we put zone 5 at the top of our high intensity spectrum zone, realizing that with the COROS, with the precision of zone 6, it says I only got 3% in at zone 6, we're talking about maybe alactic sprint speed, strides, pure high intensity hill reps, 100 meter sprints, 200 meter sprints, where there's a very high, maybe even anaerobic component. And maybe that heart rate spikes, maybe not, but the intensity, the speed is very important. Now, again, back to these heart rate zones and analyzing real world performances, I have a spreadsheet, a simple spreadsheet that I just keep track of. This is separate, of when I wear this during races, which I used to never do, but I do now. I wear this during every single one of my races now to get good heart rate data. And thankfully at like Javelina, it was going for 13 and a half hours. That's the kind of duration and battery life you could expect from COROS. Super long duration, so super accurate heart rate data. It helps. And I could say, okay, well, if I averaged, you know, I wore this at the Tarawera 100K, the Grand Traverse, which were about 9-hour races. For me, a 9-hour effort, I was averaging, you know, 134 at the Grand Traverse. I was flailing around. That was a ski race, right? 129 only at the Tarawera 100K. I got massively dehydrated, was throwing up. So I was thinking going into Javelina, I had a good goal of like, well, if I could keep over 130 beats per minute with my heart rate for a 13-hour, 100-mile race in the heat, that would be pretty good power, pretty good effort. I know I could pull out 7-minute miles, 4-minute, sub 5-minute kilometers on the trail for 100 miles if my heart rate's staying above 130. Well, it didn't, because I had stomach issues, and then it dropped into the 90s because I'm stopping and puking. But, I digress there. What's more realistic, and again, you could wear these great battery life in the COROS and ultras, is maybe if you're racing a 5K all out and you're in good weather conditions at sea level, and you get a good VO2 max almost type of effort, that last kilometer, that last mile of the 5K, when you're kicking as hard as you can, you could probably say, okay, well, my heart rate, when it got up there, that was probably getting pretty close to 100% max heart rate. If I pulled out a good even-paced effort, I felt like I pushed really hard mentally, I was, totally dead at the finish line. Maybe it was only 98% of your max, but it was probably close enough. It was probably in your VO2 max type of zone, especially if you're a sub 20-minute type of 5K runner. Now, if you're running 25, 30 minutes for 5K, then we might be looking at more like, okay, what's your lactate threshold intensity? So, you do these races with the heart rate data. You say, I could hold this heart rate for 20 minutes, all out 5K. If I'm doing a 10K in 45 minutes, what was my average heart rate for that? Or what was my heart rate in the second half of this 10K? What kind of numbers, relative numbers? Was it 150s, 160s? Could be totally different for you. For me, it would probably be, in the 160s. And if it's a 10K in 40 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, that's probably very close to your true lactate threshold, zone 4. And so we have a heart rate value, relative heart rate value for this all-out 10K race in good conditions at sea level. And we also have a pace, especially if you paced it well and you pace it pretty evenly, we have a good pace for your lactate threshold. So now we know velocity at lactate threshold, heart rate data at lactate threshold. We could even comment on the spreadsheet or the training log, how we felt in terms of RPE, rate of perceived exertion, but also subjective feelings. Did it feel like we were on fire with acidosis and lactate? Were we breathing uncontrollably, that we were spitting all over ourselves and we couldn't talk at all? Probably at the end if you were pushing hard. And we could even go up to, the half marathon. I have some data. I did the Cleveland half marathon, 111 or so, warm, hot, humid conditions, but I could hold over 160 for that. So I knew, okay, if that's around 70 minutes, my true lactate threshold, maybe I could pull 163, 164 for 60 minutes. Maybe that's my true lactate threshold. And we could prick our fingers at lactate values and do all that science, look for a curve, but most people don't have access to that, and I realize that. We can have access to our heart rate data, our time, our distance, and what kind of race performance or hard workout performance we pull out though. So we track those over time, and we have a really good idea that when we go to the track for a threshold session, lactate threshold, what our heart rate and pace might need to be to evoke that stimulus, right? And realize that we have to adjust things for weather conditions, right? I go to the track up here at 2,000 meters, 7,500 feet, and yeah, I know I'm going to be a lot slower compared to sea level. Even the partial pressure changes how your heart rate kind of responds. But it could be windy, it could be hot. If it's hot, sometimes our heart rate's elevated for a certain pace, right? So we have to read these fine differences, plus or minus 3 beats, 5 beats per minute, and how that might affect us. So going back to the training hub, if we get into the dashboard here, we could see I've got my pace zones, and COROS has these great pace zones. It's learned my habits. I'm a creature of habit. I've been training a lot over the years, wearing my COROS on every run. Aerobic endurance, you realize that pace range it gives me, 645 or 647 to 810 per mile is essentially my zone 2 pace. So that's almost a minute 15 per mile pace range, 75 seconds per mile. I'll put that in kilometers there, of my zone 2 pace range. There's a very wide pace range because I could be running very slowly, or on the slower end, I'll say 8-minute mile pace, 5-minute per kilometer pace. My heart rate could very easily drop under 120 beats per minute. I could accelerate to sub 7-minute mile pace, sub 3-hour marathon pace, and my heart rate will only go up 10 beats per minute because it's a very marginal increase in effort for me, but it's still over a minute per mile effort increase. So that kind of shows you. And then as we get up to the thresholds, up tempo zone 3, threshold zone 4, you realize the pace ranges get a lot more tight, partly because I'm running at a faster pace range, the seconds are worth more, but also because I've just developed a lot of experience over time, and I know, okay, at altitude, my threshold pace is around 530, 540 per mile, especially on the windy track up here at altitude. Whereas if I drop that to sea level, I know I could hold that pace for a whole marathon at Boston. So that's kind of the difference. But if you're going by pace, you want to look at all these things, these metrics, and realize that training's not just you can make it as complex as you want, but it's fun to dive into the details a bit and to track your progress over time, because the big takeaway, and this will be my final plug here, the big takeaway is that if you're doing the same workout at the same pace 3 or 4 weeks later in similar weather conditions, the goal is to have your heart rate be lower on average for the same pace, right? It's a sign of adaptation and progress, right? Even if it's a zone 2 easy run, I wouldn't read too much into it with the heart rate. I don't even look at my heart rate during the run. I look at it after the run because I'm just going by feel. Same thing with the pace, actually. I don't let it drive me crazy. I just go by my breathing, which you could do. But it's fun to see that heart rate come down as you get in more aerobic fitness shape and you develop that aerobic base, which is why zone 2 and lower intensity training is so important. It allows for consistency. It allows for building higher volume. It allows for recovery between these harder quality workouts that are the icing on the cake. But it mentally is not stressful because it's a very relaxing thing. It promotes blood flow. It still burns calories. It burns fat pretty well too. It may not be the fastest way to get into peak shape really quickly, but it allows you to have a bigger ceiling of peak shape and a preservation of aerobic fitness for a longer period of time because you've built that consistency with zone 2. So that's the real key with low intensity balance. But when you get those high intensity heart rate spikes, and I love seeing the graphs of the heart rate spikes on harder workouts, you get these nice shark fin-like graphs. You could see the time you spend in each intensity zone. You could see the heart rate spikes, And you could see your progress over time using this heart rate data, but also the pace data. And again, it goes back to road marathon training. If you want a sub 3 hour marathon, 6:52 per mile pace, you got to be getting your threshold to under 6:40 per mile pace. I'll put those in metric there, right? If you can't throw down some long threshold workouts, even on tired legs, around your marathon pace, how are you going to hold that for 26.2 miles in a row, 42.2K in a row, right? Likewise, for my trail runner friends, maybe you're doing repeats up your favorite local hill, right? High intensity, 4-minute, 5-minute hill repeats. Maybe it's 2 by 20 minutes, something longer, 3 by 10 minutes. You see progress on these same segments or distances on this hill repeat because you're running faster at the same heart rate, or you're running the same split up the hill at a lower heart rate. And so we could see how there's progress in either direction. Maybe it also feels easier. You're not breathing as hard, hands on knees. And then, as you progress, supercompensation, you got to push the body more and get up to that next plateau or that next level of fitness, level up, step up in the fitness game. Then you could taper and peak before your goal race. But that's kind of just the training philosophy around here. Again, COROS, great with the app, super fast transfer of data, great analysis. I wear my COROS watches. They're very stylish, I think. Check them out. Enter code SAGE after you load the cart with a GPS watch, and you get a free gift item. That's at COROS. Again, give them a follow, COROS Global on social media. Really appreciate their support. That is a sponsor plug. Hope you're doing well. I've got exciting announcements already planning for next year, but trying to take a break after Javelina. The 100-mile does take it out of you, so it's coming into the holiday season now. I'll be traveling a bit, but great. If I saw you at the New York City Marathon last week, want to see you at more events in the future. Let me know how you're doing in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and like these videos. Check out our training plans at highrounning.com. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more of VO2 Max Productions.